Hi everyone. Today I'll be demonstrating a new feature available in the 10.2 release of Simple GIS Client, and that is adding a chart object to your map document when you're publishing a map. So to begin, I have a project that I created in Simple GIS Client, and I just have a couple of layers loaded. I have the Stamen terrain base map data, which has the OpenStreetMap data loaded into my map, and I also have this layer that I created for congressional districts in Indiana, and I actually created this layer using the US Census Wizard that comes with Simple GIS Client. And if I actually click using the View Feature Data on one of these polygons within this congressional district, I can see I have some population data that I've populated based upon that US Census Wizard. So essentially this is population data broken down by different age segments. So in this case, I'll be using this to demonstrate how we can use this. And again, if you just are curious, I created this using the US Census Wizard available under the Data Download Wizards in Simple GIS Client to get this population breakdown, which is a useful tool. If you want to view more about it, you can view the help documentation in Simple GIS Client, or if you visit the website, there is a video tutorial on using the wizard as well. But to begin, I see that I have this layer loaded, and I've classified it in the legend by the congressional districts, and I've created the legend using some transparency values so you can kind of see the street level information show through. And then I've also added labeling to this layer to label the congressional districts. So let's assume I wanted to create a map of this. And of course, the data of interest is the population breakdown by these age segments. So if I wanted to create a published map, I'm going to go to my Publish Map tool, located here at the far right corner of my toolbar. And of course, as I click on that, I'll get the dialog box that comes up that asks me to select a map template. And I can create a new empty map document, or I can use a predefined template. And for this example, I'm just going to use this very basic. It's a portrait layout on a small sheet, 8.5 by 11, with just a single viewport. So once I click Apply, I see that it has created a new map document. As I can see, I have a new tab at the bottom of my application window, and I see the area with just a single viewport on my map page. And so at this point, if I wanted to zoom in to this area a little bit, I'll turn on my viewport navigation. And so I'll click on my viewport navigation tool until I see the red X disappear. And I'll just use my zoom in tool to zoom in to this congressional district a little bit, and then I'm going to click on my pan tool just to shift this map a little bit further north, create a little more space at the bottom of the map, and I'm actually going to decrease the zoom a little bit. I'm just using the mouse wheel to zoom out just a little bit and create a little more room at the bottom of my map where we'll add the chart element. So once I have the map, the general area set, I'll turn my viewport navigation off, which now allows me to zoom in and out on the page and control page elements. So at this point, I'm going to create a chart in this general area in the bottom. So again, I left that space at the bottom. Before I do so, I'm going to go to my page setup, and which is the far left tool on the top toolbar. And I can see I can set all of my page settings as far as orientation and size. But what I want to do is I want to turn on my grids, and I want to set a snapping. And I'm going to set my grid snapping to 1/2 inch. And I'm going to do snap to grid. That way, as I draw new elements on my map, I can snap them to even distributions set at 1/2 inch. So it just helps in drawing and adding new elements if you want to just make sure that it's aligned well with the page. So I can see now I have the grids on the outside. The others are hidden behind the viewport. But now I'm going to go and select on my drop-down menu here to add a new map element. I want to add a map chart. It's the very last entry here. And so as I select that, I'm simply going to click and drag now where I want the chart to appear. And if you notice as I'm dragging how it's snapping to those increments, those intervals of every half inch. And so as I release, I get a new dialog box that comes up to set the chart properties. So to begin with, in this dialog box, the very first thing is to select the viewport that contains the layer that we want to graph. And so as I select elements, I'll see it appear in this preview box, but if I select or click on the viewport drop down, I see in this case I only have a single viewport on this map. So I only have one option there to choose, and actually now when I select on the layer in this particular viewport, there's only one shapefile loaded in that particular map view. So that's the only shape that I see appear. So I'm going to select this shapefile, and this is the shapefile that contains the population data that I want to graph. So as I select this shapefile, I'll notice that if I look down here under the available fields, I see that all of these fields populated, which are fields within the shapefile. And I also have this X-axis ID field drop box. And this is the field that contains the values that will uniquely identify each feature that we'll be graphing in our chart. So this needs to be a field that can uniquely identify each of the features. So by default, this element is going to chart all of the features that are visible in this viewport currently. And so if I select this drop-down box under my X-axis ID field, in this particular case, I have a field here called CD15, and that is the congressional district. So that will be the unique identifier we'll use to identify each of the features that we're going to graph. Next, under available fields, I need to select the data that I want to graph. So the first one is this 18 to 34. And as I select that field, I'm going to come here to this button with the double arrows pointing to the right and click on it. And I see that it has now added a new entry into my chart series. And now I see under my chart preview, it kind of previews and shows what the chart will look like under the current settings. Again, this data is just strictly a preview. It's not based on any real data. It's just giving you an idea of what your chart will look like. In this case, I can see that the label I'm using for this particular field, I want to make it a little more descriptive. So I'm just going to double click into it till I see that I get to the edit state. And I'm just going to type in a new value for this. I'm going to call it 18 to 34 years old, because that's what that value represents. And then also, I'm not real thrilled with the color, which is just a random color that was selected. So if I double click on the color, I'll get a color pick box that'll come up, and I'll just choose a new color for this series. So at this point, I'm going to select the next field data that I want to graph, which is the next age group breakdown, which is the 35 to 54-year-olds. So again, I'm going to change the label to make it more descriptive. So I'll double click on it until I get into an edit state, and I'm just going to type in a new description right over that. No, not 25, 35 to 54 years old. And I'm going to add my last value here, which is my last segment breakdown, which is 55 years old and over. So, and again, I don't like the color that it chose. I'm going to double click on the color and just choose a different color from the pick box. So I have now the three fields that I want to graph. In this case, if I wanted to filter the selection further, I could create an expression. So again, by default, it's going to graph every feature in the layer that's selected that is visible in the current viewport. If I wanted to limit that further, I could click on this add expression and actually build a query expression to limit the features that's visible even further. So for instance, if I just wanted to show a specific congressional district or a couple of different ones. In this case, I'm just going to close this, and it added this in the expression, so I'm just going to click this clear expression button here because I don't want to limit it. Underneath here you see the position of our chart, so the left top corner of the chart is located a ½ inch from the left of the page, 7.5 inches down from the top, and it's 7.5 inches wide and 3 inches tall. So that looks good. I'll leave it. Here I can type in a title for my chart. So basically, as I just click in this title box, as I'm typing, you see the title in the preview pane below appear. I can also choose a font for my title. I could change the font size if I so choose. So I want a bigger title. Just increase my font size. I can decrease it again. This 3D% just affects the 3D effect of the chart. So as you increase it, it gives it more of a 3D effect. If you decrease it, it reduces the 3D effect. The chart type, I'm going to leave it set to bar. If you are graphing multiple chart series elements, I'd really recommend sticking with bar. If you try and go to a pie chart, it's going to add a pie chart for each series that you've added, which is probably not what you want to do. If you just had a single series, then a pie would work fine and it would show the breakdown for each of the features for that series in that pie chart. But again, since in our case now we have 3 different series that we're trying to plot against, the bar chart works the best. And then if you want a legend for your chart, if you don't want one, just click the none and you'll see it removes the legend, or click the position of where you want the legend to appear. Here you can change the frame around your chart. So if you wanted a different symbol, you could just double click in this box to bring up the symbol palette. Here at this point, you could choose a different symbol if you'd like for it to use as your frame. And now you see that I have this new frame. The actual chart area is still in white, but I see this red outline around it, which represents the frame. And I'm just going to set this back to the way it was. And then as I click apply, I now see that it has added my chart to my map document. And I'm just going to zoom in on the page to let you see a little bit more. So I can see that for each, on the x-axis is each congressional district. In this case 1 through 9, that's the number of districts visible on my map. And I see I have my legend here, and this is the population breakdown by those age groups for each of those features. Again, the features that's graphed here are just the features that are visible in my current viewport. And that's it. So you see it's fairly easy to use. I'm just going to zoom back out to fit page. But again, if there's data that you're wanting to communicate with your map, sometimes you can just more effectively communicate that information by graphing it. And this gives you an easy way to add this graph. If you wanted to go back and change the properties of this, you could just use your Select Graphics tool, which is the red arrow button on your toolbar, just double click on your graph. If I come back and I want to turn my viewport navigation on just to demonstrate, and I'm going to change the view of my viewport so that you can see how the chart will change as the features that are visible on my viewport actually changes. So if I just come and I'm just going to zoom in, and now I see that my chart did in fact change based on the number of features visible. And if I reduce that, now I see that the number of elements in my chart that are graphed reduces as well. So again, it's only graphing those features that are visible in the view. So this concludes today's video tutorial. Hopefully you found it useful, and as always, for more information, please visit our website at www.simplegissoftware.com. Thank you.